Us, abandoned ship. We're not caring about this car. We're thinking about the next year.
Exit clauses, yada yada yada.
Hulkenberg is the blue shell right now. Angle grinder guy, he gets a raise.
There you go.
Whoa.
He gets both salaries.
There you go.
What are they doing with the 5th and 6th seats?
Yeah, it's just Weenie Hut Formula One Junior now.
They don't fire up the same way that F1 cars do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tyred Boys podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm your host, Aaron. Welcome back, everyone, for another episode. We've got the Austrian Grand Prix recap for you this week. So we'll run through some quick hitters as usual, talk about some lineup changes and whatnot, and then get into the F3, F2, and F1 weekend here in Austria. But Justin, very good to see you. I'm looking forward to talking about my favorite race of the season.
Yeah, I had a lot of thoughts about that. You saying how you were like without a dog in the race effectively, and how will you survive for an hour and a half when the boy is not live and on your screen. But I have to say, I was literally dying of laughter on the couch. I had tears in my eyes when we were all like in the chat, talking about the race. And I was celebrating the papaya rules, and I just got a big old thumbs down from you. I was literally like howling. I was like, dude, that's so funny. So yeah, I can imagine probably not one of your favorite races, but unlike some of us around here, we're just able to enjoy just good racing. We don't need a dog in the race.
Well, unfortunately, it was some bad racing or some mistakes that caused my chagrin. But no, I mean, I still enjoyed watching it. It just loses a little bit of that, and I think also I had high expectations of Max climbing through the field and everything to potentially challenge for some of those positions. So I was like, that was also kind of one of the storylines that I felt like was set up for this race weekend after qualifying. So I felt like the kind of main storyline fell away, or I guess one of the main storylines. So that's where you lose a little bit when that kind of thing happens early. But we'll get into that a little bit more shortly. We'll roll into the quick hitters. And so we've had a little bit of time off since Canada. So since then, we had the Road America IndyCar race in Wisconsin. Mr. Alex Palou manages to make it back on top there. So now the IndyCar season has been very interesting in terms of some domination right now. We talked about Alex Palou, but the only other driver to win on the season is Kyle Kirkwood. He has 3 wins. Alex Palou has 6. So of the 9 races, only 2 winners, which is definitely a pretty peculiar way to start, I think, any racing season, to see some just strong favorites, especially IndyCar, where the cars are on a much more even playing field. We saw Santino Ferrucci take a podium there as well. He was, and I think the most interesting part of this is he ran out of fuel just past the finish line, and about 8 other cars did the same right after, because there were some full course cautions, number of different things throughout the race that caused drivers to be on a kind of lift and coast strategy towards the end just to make it. So there was a lot of jeopardy in the end of this race. I would highly recommend checking out the highlights. It was very interesting listening to the commentators talk about whether drivers were going to run out of fuel, what they were planning to do. Graham Rahal was leading up until one of the later stages, but had to pit because he just didn't get the optimal pit strategy because of the full course cautions, and so falls down a little ways down the field there. But overall, just a very interesting IndyCar race to check out, and something that we haven't seen recently really in F1 with um, concerns about not having enough fuel to finish. I remember maybe 4 years ago there, or 5 years ago now, there were a couple of races where that was the case, whether drivers didn't have a fuel sample at the end of the race and were disqualified, or just barely kind of skating around at the end.
Yeah, that seems to be something that's like few and far between for Formula One. Obviously, it happens. But yeah, they seem pretty good at like fueling for exactly what they need, plus a little bit. So yeah, an odd thing to have happened with so many cars, but like you were saying, when there's so many like stoppages of play effectively, like yeah, you're gonna run into these issues. One thing that I thought was really interesting about the Road America IndyCar race was, honestly, I felt like Polo really had to kind of show his class in the race. Like if you watch the start, he falls like right off the pack, gets swallowed up by everybody around him.
Mm,
By the time like the first lap shakes out, I think he's like P5, P6, and like not even the aggressor. He's kind of on the back foot. By the time you're pitting for the first time, he was like genuinely position 14. Not even like other people had to pit. Like, no, that was just his race position. So he had to make up a lot of positions. There were a couple drivers that were like squabbling ahead of him, but like you were saying, with the full course cautions and these things, he was able to make his way back up, and only leading the race. I think it was like 8 or 9 laps or so, not a
mm,
lot. Like mainly from the end of the race, coming and putting that car on P1. So I thought that was really impressive. Where some of his other races are like a good qualifying, good launch, like good tire strategy, just like normal things falling in line.
yeah.
But I feel like he had to fight for this one pretty significantly, and he still came out on top. And it's like, damn, okay, this guy really is some kind of a monster here, which is really impressive. And yeah, that was going to be one of my notes for IndyCar too, was just how crazy it is to see Pelot and Kirkwood just trading wins back and forth. Obviously, Pelot getting the better of him, but yeah, in a field of cars that are all effectively the same, it's wild to see um such performance out of just two of the drivers here. So really interesting competition, I should say, going on over at IndyCar, and Road America was no different for Pelot.
Yeah, and I thought, especially looking at those two being the only winners when we have other champions that are still in the field. We have Will Power, we have Joseph Newgarden, we have these guys who are driving well, looking strong, but just have not been able to get that win so far this season. So it's definitely shaping up to be a pretty interesting rest of the year over in IndyCar. Even if Alex Palou is running away with it at the front right now, a couple of tough races kind of brought the field back together, so he still has some work to do to hang on to that. But looking over, we had the F1 movie that came out recently, and so Brad Pitt, that just through all these connections and everything, through all the filming, he actually got an opportunity over the past week to drive a McLaren at Circuit of the Americas, one of their former F1 cars from maybe last year or the year before, in a kind of a test session. And so seeing him get out there and drive a few laps, and like really like hearing him talk about it afterwards, he was just amped after. He's like going from an F2 car and those specs, and driving for filming, compared to like being able to go out there in an F1 car and just like give it full power and put a couple of solid laps in. Um, he was like, this is an insane difference. And so it's one of those reminders as well, I guess, that with the F2 drivers that do come up into F1 or get those practice testing sessions, how like valuable those things are for the drivers. And I think that that's it was like a unique perspective to kind of get that from, compared to what we typically hear from drivers.
Yeah, for sure. I only saw the Brad Pitt segment on socials. I have yet to check it out, but I was very interested to see what his experience was like in the Formula One car. I imagine that's got to be a good amount of fun, as a little bonus for filming a movie like that. So very cool. I'm excited to hear what Brad Pitt has to say about the experience.
Yeah, so I'll have to send you over that link, but the uh talking about the F1 movie and red carpets and all, it's been noted recently that Max has been absent from all of the premieres and all of these things. And so he was actually asked about it this past week, and he was asked like why he doesn't go to these red carpet things and premieres, and he basically said he said I don't like to be on the red carpet and dress up in a suit. I don't like to interact with people I don't really know and have a fake smile and a fake chat. It's horrible. I just don't enjoy it. And I love the just blunt honesty. Like he's not beating around the bush. He's like, it's not fun, so I'm not gonna do it. I'm not required to. So definitely kind of amusing to hear that from Max. You can kind of assume, but it's funny to actually hear him say it and put it into to his own words.
Yeah, and to be fair, like just watching movies doesn't seem like his cup of tea. So yeah, if he's got no like team requirements or anything, yeah, man, whatever.
Yeah.
It'll be fine, it'll be totally fine. So yeah, I'm glad that they can kind of do what they want in that regard and not have to spend every moment away from the track like involved in like shenanigans just for their sport. I'm happy that they're able to like make some choices like that. That's kind of cool. And yeah, just hilarious to hear it from him. He has a very entertaining way of putting things for sure.
Yeah, he's just very blunt with the way he talks sometimes, and kind of continuing on with Max. Like you said, when you're away from the track, your time's yours, and so Max pushed off his media time after DNFing from the race this weekend and was hanging out in his in their not garage their like trailer watching the 24 hours of Spa where his GT car and team was racing and actually came home and won the gold level of that race, then beating out a couple of the pro level teams as well. Finishing P9 overall ahead of two of the pro level teams, and of course leading that gold level pack. And the other cool thing from the 24 hours of Spa, other than just the race in general, was that Lamborghini took the win there, so it's their first World Endurance Championship win at Spa. So a pretty cool um, moment for the Lamborghini team to check that off of one of their race wins, or one of their events to have a win at.
Yeah, for sure. That's a nice bit of silver to add into the cabinet, I imagine. Spa, one of my favorite circuits. So yeah, no surprise that Max is like, what do I want to watch Yuki Tsunoda race for? You know what? Let me just watch my team. Fair enough. I'm happy to hear that his team endeavors are going very well. That's quite exciting, and maybe a little nod to the younger drivers if they're looking around and seeing like, damn, Lewis gets off, he gets to go walk a red carpet, like damn, Sebastian Vettel, like he gets off, he's building B boxes. I feel like the younger drivers, they got to get involved with something else. You got to build up your extracurriculars so that when Toto calls, you can be like, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I gotta drive the little Antonellis to the track. So maybe the extracurriculars is where it's at. But yeah, just happy to hear that Max is winning. Surprising to hear Lamborghini getting a dub. Not one of the names you usually hear talking about the World Endurance Cup races. But yeah, happy for them to get one. That's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty cool moment. But then just looking more towards Formula One again, leading into the weekend. So the FIA released a penalty guidelines document to assist stewards, and I think primarily this is just like now being released publicly so that the public can kind of I think it's the goal is to reduce some of the backlash on stewards for their decisions when there's penalties during overtaking in particular. So there's guidelines for what you're supposed to be when you're overtaking on the outside, when you're overtaking on the inside line, and whatnot. And so I found it interesting that they actually released their general guidelines. I'm surprised that it wasn't like that public already. But it definitely will, I think, benefit overall, not just the audience, or at least people who are more heavily following F1 to be aware of those things. I'm sure it'll still come up every time there's an incident, but um, I appreciated them kind of trying to uh, put that out there and give a little more clarity.
Yeah, I don't know, man. If an FIA decision causes my boy Lando Norris to have some type of kerfuffle, some type of negative event, if the FIA are deciding Lando's race, I'm not watching the PowerPoint. I'm just yelling at him.
Nah, that's fair. I mean, that's what we get to do as fans. We just get to yell. We get to um
That's what I'm saying. Whether
yeah,
the info's there or not, I'm gonna ignore it. And if you're messing with my boy, I'm just yelling at you.
yeah, that's fair.
You know?
And I think that's how most of especially the F1 Twitter world will still react to that. I don't think anyone's going to be like, "Well, in the FIA key document that was released, subsection 2." So,
There you
yeah.
go. There you go.
It was nice for me though, because maybe it's just because Max ends up in a few too many of those situations, and it's nice for me to have some clarity more than other people, but I appreciated it. And the
There you
other
go.
the other things announced with Formula One, we have the Austrian Grand Prix being extended through 2041, which is crazy. A nice little 16-year extension, which I think is great, because the circuit always has some good, interesting fights and everything, but that's kind of crazy to extend these things out that far. And yeah,
Dude, yeah, and then every year they have to be like, should Monaco stay? I don't know. And they're signing 15-year-long contracts with these other places. It's like, come on, man. Come
yeah,
on. I
like
will
you,
say, I will say, like rant aside, I really like this circuit.
I do too.
Turns 1 up to 3 down to 4. Dude, that is some of the funnest racing. Well, not just like not objectively, but it offers an interesting what am I trying to say? That section of track has a very unique layout where it's the like drag race up the hill, tight
Mhm.
turn, drag race down the hill to another like lap defining turn where the apex like falls away and you can get stuck there. So I really like 1, 3 down to 4. Like that run is very exciting. So by all
Yeah.
means, keep the track. That's like I'm not
Oh,
complaining. I like
absolutely.
the circuit. Just saying, it's so funny how they're like, well, I don't know if we should keep this one, but you look over here and it's like, oh no, they're locked in forever. Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
No, I'm with you. I think it's kind of wild to extend it out so far that Max's child might be able to drive in the 2041 race. If she gets into F1 as young as he did. But I think that
great.
I agree with you on this circuit in particular. I think it's very unique in those characteristics of, it offers a lot of speed and overtaking opportunities with these three DRS zones going into like pretty difficult corners with the braking points and everything. Uh, and I think the really good thing about the circuit is how short it is in that sense, because it's not like some of these other tracks like China or Monza that have these really super long DRS straights where if you have the DRS and you're half a second behind, you get the overtake. Here in Austria, like you are still having to make a move, make it stick, like get past the driver because you don't have enough time with the DRS to just blow past someone. So it makes it like really interesting and difficult to figure out, are you gonna fake to the outside, go to the inside line? Are you going to try and hang it around the outside and hope that the other driver leaves you enough space? There's a lot more difficulty in overtakes, but a lot more opportunity as well. So yeah, I'm with you. I think it's great to have this stay on the calendar. And then looking at the 2026 calendar unfolding a little bit, there were the announced dates for preseason testing. So we have 5 days in Barcelona, 3 in Bahrain, and then 3 more in Bahrain. So Barcelona is going to be January 26th through the 30th, and this is just, I believe, from the rules or the regulations changes. They're giving them a lot more opportunity to be on track, and also giving a little contingency for any potential weather and whatnot.
Oh, that's actually crazy. January testing?
Yeah,
Bro,
so
we don't have to wait that long at all. That's like,
yeah,
dude, that's like 3 or 4 weeks instead of, bro, for the last however long we've been having to wait, like it's almost like 3 months. It's like 3 and some months for Formula 1 to be back, even for like testing. Dude, that's so crazy. And then they like double the amount of days.
yeah. So we'll have
Wow.
Abu Dhabi on December 5th to 7th weekend, and then yeah, like 4 weeks later or so, 5 weeks later, we'll have the first testing session, and so there are 5 days, but each team will sit out 2 of the days. So one, it'll allow teams more track time, less traffic, and everything, but also that's a bit of a contingency. I guess there was a disruption to the F1 testing in 2018 due to a snowstorm when they were doing these all in Barcelona. Um, so giving a little bit of leeway with it being earlier in the year to kind of allow for some potential weather and whatnot. Um, but yeah, that I think will be exciting to see, and I think it's great that they're giving about really double the time for testing so that teams are able to work out all the details of these new regulations.
Oh yeah. Flow Viz Paint is my favorite time of the year.
I think most a lot of it honestly is just going to be long run testing to
Mm.
see how the engines actually hold up and if they're able to resupply the batteries and everything's working. Like obviously the later testing in Bahrain I think will be a bit more of getting the pace, maybe some more of the aero and whatnot. But I think that is going to be the biggest focus, at least in that early testing session.
Oh, you're so right because of the regulation changes for next year.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And that's what you were saying, where it may just be like a for next year thing where it's
Right. I
like
don't
it's a
think it's going to
regulation
be.
change.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be
Right.
every year,
Okay.
but I'll take it. I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth here. So
Yeah, that's still pretty cool, and I'd rather them, you know, take those extra days and make sure you don't have like what was that Formula E or whatever it was, where like the
yeah.
first couple races like they didn't have enough charge to finish or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, hoping just for some good results. So yeah, looking forward to that. But I'm curious here. going into 26, we also have a couple of seats that we have to fill. Has there been anything on the rumor mill about any of these things, or any other personnel changes on Do You Work Here?
Yeah, so I'll start off just to breeze through a couple, but Carlos Sainz Sr. has officially withdrawn from running for FIA president this year. So it looks like things are going to just kind of stay the course as is. I'm not sure if there was a particular reason why, but I know Carlos Sainz Jr. Was talking about how, as a racing fan, he was very excited about the prospect of his dad running for FIA president, but as a driver who it affects, he was not thrilled about the conflict of interest. So I don't know if that um, tie-in kind of helped with making that decision. I wouldn't be surprised. But he basically to say that he felt like his dad would be good at the role, but just having that conflict of interest makes it a little bit peculiar. Um, Sebastian Vettel was there was a not announcement, but there were rumors going around that Seb had some early talks with Red Bull about a non-driver role. So whether coming on as a Helmet Marco type consultant to the team, or being involved with the team in other ways, it seems like he's interested in getting back and being a part of the paddock again potentially, which is a pretty exciting thing to see. Max said that he knows that Red Bull always has a spot for Seb, and I know he and Seb um, have gotten along well over the years. But looking to what you were mentioning, some rumors about signings. We still have both Cadillac seats open, and there was a kind of teaser video that the Cadillac, or that Valtteri Bottas put out, hopping into a Cadillac car and say, "Oh, this seat is really nice. Oh, there's two seats up front here. Oh." But he and Sergio Perez are looking to be kind of the top two prospects currently. I know a number of other, Zhou Guan Yu, Mick Schumacher, all these names have floated in and out. But these two seem to be the ones that are sticking the most for those seats next year. And I think it makes sense to have a solid veteran lineup for a new team coming in. I think those two drivers are both drivers that most people would say are very consistent over their careers. Um, Obviously, Sergio's end of his racing with Red Bull, with that beast of a machine that it seems to drive, um, didn't have the best form at the end, but across his career, Sergio Perez had a really strong, consistent form throughout, and similar with Valtteri throughout his time in Formula One. So I think that would be a smart choice from Cadillac if they're looking to really kind of push the team forward over those first couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. I saw that promo from Valtteri getting into the Cadillac truck, whatever it was. I was like, "That's my boy. He's getting locked in. Son, get him a contract. Get him a contract." It's like, let's get him back. Him and that haircut.
Yeah, I love the mullet he's got going on, the bleach blonde mullet. Very fast hair, I would say. But yeah, I'd love to see Valtteri and Checo back in F1. I think a lot of us owe Checo an apology after seeing the trauma that these drivers are going through this year in the Red Bull second seat. But the last big piece of news was that James Vowles was has signed a new long-term contract with Williams as their team principal. So he will be with the team for quite some time. There was an official announcement of how long, but it says basically for quite a while to come. And so I think it's great to lock in a guy like that, similar to having like a Toto Wolff at the helm of the team. I know James worked for Mercedes for a long time, but he's doing very well at Williams. I think that's great for stability for the team over the next couple of years. And then just last little quick notes, but we had Alex Dunn and Arvid Lindblad, who were two of the drivers who were filling in the first practice session of the weekend for the Formula One Austrian Grand Prix weekend.
Yeah, and speaking of filling in, because obviously the teams are going to have to do, I think it was like double what they normally do. I think they have to test like four drivers, or at least like 4 sessions, bringing in like a younger driver. So something I was actually thinking about, especially after this weekend with Colapinto, was the question of Paul Aaron, the Alpine reserve driver, stating that the Kick Sauber team will be utilizing his services for FP1. Pretty sure at Silverstone. So the Alpine reserve driver, like I said, gonna be getting a little bit of a drive. I'm curious if this is like gonna be used to inform further decisions about the Colapinto seat, because we are kind of ticking down on what was the at least like what members of the Alpine personnel stated about the Colapinto contract was like a 5 race like
Right.
lead time or whatever it was. We're kind of closing down on that. Now we're hearing the reserve driver ramping up. So yeah, I've just been curious about that seat. What are your thoughts? Because I know uh you were a bit bearish on Colapinto this weekend, you could say.
I think that's fair, and it's just I have not been extremely impressed with Colapinto since he's come into the seat here at Alpine, and I understand that he hasn't driven this car before, but he did have more experience in Formula One in general than Jack Doohan. Jack Doohan didn't really get many opportunities, in my opinion, to prove himself. And since Colapinto has come in, he has done similarly poorly. He's finished. Well, I can pull up. So Doohan had DNF, P13, P15, P14, P17, DNF. With the second of those, I don't think being his fault whatsoever, for that DNF in Miami. Then Colapinto, we've had 16, 13, 15, 13, 15. So still, and in some of those races, 15th is like one of the last finishers as well because of other DNFs throughout the race. So I think the longer that we go into this driver swap there with Alpine, I think the more frustrated I am for Jack Doohan, because if Colapinto came in here and was scoring point, even scored 1 point for the team, I would be like, absolutely worth it. That was the right call. They need every point they can get. Jack wasn't getting there, but Colapinto's finishing way out of the points places in every race so far. He really hasn't shown a ton of consistent pace, even in qualifying sessions, to put like that one lap together to really. I mean, he's had some Q2 appearances and everything. I don't think he's had a Q3 appearance so far since he's been into the Alpine seat. And so, my opinion, and it was a little out of left field, I think, when I brought it up, but I saw something on Twitter as I was scrolling through, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like it really, Jack Doohan died for this. Like he Jack Doohan got kicked out of F1 for someone else to go and not score any points either. It just seems like it was a bit of a rash decision there from the Alpine team. But I also wanted to correct myself on one thing. Lindblad is going to be in FP1 at Silverstone. He was not this past weekend. It was Dino Boganovic who was the second uh, F2 driver that was in, and he was in Charles Leclerc's Ferrari for practice one.
Gotcha. Okay, no worries on that. Yeah, I do. I do hesitate to be supportive of the like 3 races in booting drivers. I just feel like that's yeah, I'm not sure what the word is, but maybe hasty policy, something that probably doesn't like get you long-term results. Unsure, but it doesn't feel like the right way to be going. Yeah, especially when you are just like plugging and playing effectively the same driver. Like there is no like upside difference between the like discernible difference between the two when you're looking at those results, when you're
Right.
looking at the car. So yeah, that is really tough. How can how can viewers get invested in your team and your drivers if you're showing that you're just ousting people, try this one.
Yeah.
You're not gonna encourage like long-term fans in that way, especially especially when the brand isn't like it doesn't have legacy fans in the same way like a Williams does. Like they
Right.
get so much leeway of like, oh, like, no, remember when we were great? Like, no, like it's okay. Like, rest in peace, Frank Williams. Like, like we're still here.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they're having like a similar thing, but it is those legacy fans that can bolster that morale and like keep finding reasons to root for the team. But it's like, why? Why should anybody root for a team where we're just ousting drivers that like we swore behind 2 months ago, and now we're just like,
Mhm.
oh no, we have to do something. We're bringing
Yeah.
in literal cheaters and criminals to the high positions of the personnel, and we're wondering like what's going on over here. They just look like wasted like potential in my mind. And you're
Yeah.
kind of right, when there's no discernible upside between this driver and that driver, it's like like why don't you just, right?
Yeah. And I think especially like for these young up and coming drivers. So maybe Jack Doohan, maybe Colapinto aren't the answer. But like Colapinto, they're saying, oh, we're taking it race by race. Well, does that mean that Jack's gonna hop back in the car if Colapinto crashes out in a couple of races, or is someone else gonna come in? Like, there's a lot of kind of confusion about what's going on there, and I think the other part of it, as well as that there were reports that there at least was one F2 driver who um, anonymously talked to someone and said that he didn't want to drive for Alpine if they offered him a seat in the future. Uh, and he blamed it on not wanting to be Pierre's teammate. And I'm like, I think there's a lot of other things probably going into that decision making. And I don't know what Pierre has to do with it, but I agree with your reasoning. I mean, the guy who's the reserve driver for 2 years for the team gets 5 races to prove himself, 6 races, whatever it was, and then they're kicking him out. Like he spent years there as the reserve driver after Oscar Piastri was like, I am not driving for you guys. I signed with McLaren actually. The next guy they bring in stays there for a while, puts the time in, puts the work in, and then they're like, "Oh, you had your shot. See ya." After a quarter of the season, like I could understand why a lot of drivers wouldn't want to go to that team. So it's interesting as we're looking at these potential lineups for next year. That of course being one of those seats that is not going to be locked in probably until late on or even potentially the end of the season. It'll be very interesting to see what they do over there at Alpine moving forward to maybe create some appeal, whether it's to fans or just to other drivers that might bolster their lineup.
Yeah, without like even really meaningful results to as something shiny to, entice drivers with. It's like, yeah, I'm not sure what the get would be with that team other than like, well, it's an open seat. Hope there's like another opportunity down the line, right?
Yeah.
For yeah. So kind of drowning in that regard, and I agree with you. It's a shame Jack Doohan had to die for this.
Yeah, that's the hill that they died on. But anyway, that wraps up Do You Work here, as we still have obviously a few seats that are to be confirmed for the future of F1 and next season. But uh, looking over to the feeder series before we go there, I just want to remind you, if you're listening along, go ahead and like the video, subscribe if you're not on YouTube, subscribe on wherever you listen to your podcasts, Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on all of those. So we appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and hear us jabber on about Formula One.
We are the humans, and we are the humans that enjoy Formula One. So thank you for spending your time here with us. Back to the show.
So looking over to the feeder series segment, we've got Formula 3 here to start off. We had a pretty competitive sprint race and feature race, really, overall. Charlie Wirtz, who is, I believe, the only Austrian driver in the field, unfortunately does not get to finish the race. He gets knocked out in the sprint race about halfway through. So tough way for his day to end with that sprint and not be able to show some positive results in front of his home fans and everything, especially after he was riding pretty high up in the points up until that point. So pretty unfortunate. But the other part of the sprint race, so Nicholas Solov works his way up the field, gets into P4, picking up some solid points in that battle with Rafael Camara, who ends up finishing outside the points in the sprint race. But another kind of highlight for me was that we have Ugu Ugachukwu, who is an American driver who finished on the podium in the sprint race here in Formula 3. I always think it's exciting when we have an American driver coming up through. And so I'm looking forward to seeing his performance. He looked he has some clear strengths from watching his drive, but he definitely has some growing to do, and that's why he's in Formula 3 and making his way up through. But really strong performance from him in that sprint race.
Very cool. I'm curious, when you say he has some strengths, what did you see that was really standing out to you?
I felt like he had some strong pace and good car control, especially in overtaking opportunities. The biggest issue from what it looked like was probably just tire management, where he started to fade a bit more than other drivers towards the end of the feature race, more so than here in the sprint race. He kind of was fighting in that top three positions for a decent bit of the feature, and then just slowly slid his way backwards. So I think that would be just one of those things that, as you get more experience in the cars and kind of get more of a feel, you're at a track that you've probably never driven at before. It's not going to be perfect, but from the moves that he was making and just general kind of blanking on the word, but driver's skill, he looked pretty strong.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I don't know that I've seen him like racing at the front. I feel like there's so many drivers down in Formula 3. It's interesting to hear a name that I don't think has jumped off the page. So that's very exciting to hear about an American driver that's doing really well.
Yeah, and so I think he may have actually picked up a penalty at the end, because looking at the standings, his finishing position was further down than what he crossed the line at. Um,
Gotcha.
but overall looked very strong through that sprint race, and then in the feature race as well. Um, the feature race was also plagued, unfortunately, with some post race disqualifications. So Nicholas Solov drove a phenomenal race, comes home P1 with Stenshorn P2, Tramnitz P3, and Boya in P4. Um, Nicholas Solov was disqualified for having too much plank wear, so unfortunately gets um, kind of the short end of the stick there, just with car setup and everything for uh, having too low of a ride height, which really was a saving grace for Kamara this weekend because he would have Solov would have been 1 point back in the championship after the initial results of the race. But with that disqualification, Kamara still holds a pretty strong lead in the championship.
Yeah, that's so crazy. It's those little incidents, little moments that will decide the championship for these young drivers. Not a lot of opportunities out. Each position is not worth like a boatload of points, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, something like this happening where especially when like they've driven the good race, right? And it's just, oh, we were riding the curb a little too much, like, taking a little bit too much out of our car. Like those things will add up, and that's really unfortunate to hear for Solov, especially someone who's been so dominant over the course of the year so far in Formula 3. If not dominant, at least just like I'll say
He's been
hyper
very strong.
consistent,
Yeah,
right?
like definitely.
So very tough to hear for Solov. If you're rooting for this guy, that's tough. But like you said, a breath of fresh air for Kamara, where you just feel like this guy's hunting you. He's hunting you down. He's hunting you down. Who, at least for one race, we get a little bit of breathing room. Especially when his results were not up to snuff. So he'll get another opportunity to play with Solov not so close to him.
Yeah, it's a little bit the like how Lando with this week kind of was able to snag those points back that he lost to Max after
Right.
crashing into Oscar the other week in Canada. I think it's one of those uh, just breath of air, especially being the one leading the championship and um, seeing Solov just kind of stay more stagnant on the weekend is definitely helpful. There's a lot of points though at every race weekend for these F3 drivers. We still have 4 race weekends left for them before the end of the season, so that's a lot of points. So nothing's out of reach by any means there. Um, but looking over into the Formula 2 weekend, we had a pretty crazy incident at the beginning of the sprint race. I think it was on lap 2 or 3 where we saw Sammy Megatunov just go right into the side of Arvid Lindblad. I don't know what he saw there, but there wasn't a gap, and so plowing into him, tumbling over the top of him and Lucas Browning, or Luke Browning, and taking all 3 of them out of the race. Definitely um, a brutal way to start, and it was just good that everyone was safe because it was a really kind of scary looking incident there.
Yeah, I hate to hear about that. That's really tough because those like multi-car kerfuffles, they end up like it gets worse and worse the more cars get involved. So yeah, happy to hear nobody was like significantly injured.
Yeah, and so another save for the Halos and everything. It really was one of those incidents that if the cars didn't have the Halos, it would have been a lot worse. So very fortunate with that. There was also at the end of the sprint race another incident where Cordial gets spun out and then 3 cars just pile into him at I think it was turn 3 as well. Just they couldn't do anything. There was nowhere to go, and so the sprint race ends under safety car after a very exciting fight between Joshua Dirksen, Pepe Marti, Roman Stanek coming up through the field as well. And so Marti takes P1, Dirksen finishes P2, and Stanek P3 under the safety car for that sprint race. Um, and then the fourth position there was Richard Verschoor, who just continues to build on the strong season he's had and put more points into that gap ahead of Alex Dunn there with that. He picks up 2 more points than Alex Dunn in the sprint race. And then going over into the feature race, we had a pretty competitive fight throughout. I felt like it was a um, really exciting race to watch, and watching Verschoor kind of make his way out front and drive a really strong race there as well, battling with Fornaroli, with Crawford, and seeing a lot of these battles throughout the field. It was a really solid race. Pepe Marti, after a strong performance in the sprint race, was driving really well. I think he was up in P2 um, before the finish of the feature race, but had a 10-second penalty he was carrying that dropped him back to it finished in P6 after the penalty. So still some solid points for him, but definitely a tough break there for causing a collision and not maximizing like he should have.
Yeah, and it seems like Pepe Marti is continually qualifying near the top, continually in the fight against, for sure, Dunn and some of these other drivers. So unfortunate to see him causing a collision, getting the penalty, but yeah, no stranger to the top of the field. So I'm confident that we'll see him up there, in a very short time.
Yeah, and I think he and Arvid Lindblad, at this point, I wouldn't be shocked if both of them get an opportunity to do a bit more testing in the F1 cars, especially if they're trying to figure out who's going to get the drive at the end of next year in one of those Red Bull V car Racing Bull seats. Um, but the other kind of post race news for the F2 feature race was that Alex Dunn, who finished P2 right behind Verschoor, who he's behind in the championship as well, was disqualified after the race. Similarly, I believe it was Plankware that he was disqualified for this weekend. So Richard Verschoor picks up a huge point gain on Alex Dunn in the championship with that win, and Dunn's disqualification. So that has kind of propelled Verschoor into the lead in the championship, and I think puts him in a strong spot to potentially just expand his lead. He's looked so consistent across the last couple of race weekends in particular. He's looked really strong, really consistent. And so I think he's really on that upswing and feeling comfortable in the car. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that continue here.
Yeah, I don't really see many other drivers other than Dunn specifically who seem to have the same form as for sure. He drives with a confidence. He is ready to take many and if not all on track duels. So yeah, for sure. If I was a betting man, I'd put my money on him for the championship. I don't really see, unless Dunn is able to scrap together like a few really good results right in a row, I really don't see much of a contest for or against for sure, I should say.
Yeah, and I think there's obviously it's not out of reach. It's 24 points, so it's not even a full feature race win, but it is definitely a strong lead to take at this point in the championship. That P2 to P5, the gap is 7 points right now. So and only 11 points down to P6. So there's a lot in there that could potentially still swing around. There's that top of the field is looking very strong Fornaroli, Jack Crawford, another couple of guys who are right there. But yeah, I think it's starting to look like for sure to lose. But we have another weekend coming up here this weekend in Silverstone with the F2 grid. So looking forward to seeing how those drivers kind of either propel themselves forward and build on this past weekend, or maybe make up for some of their disappointment with the disqualifications and penalties there.
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking forward to Silverstone, one of the highlight tracks of the year, obviously, and getting to see the Formula 2 drivers there battle it out will be quite exciting. As we know, they have significantly more overtaking opportunities on average, obviously, than the Formula 1 cars, and Silverstone always a delight, so we'll be looking forward to that British weekend for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, getting over into the F1 weekend, we'll start off with the hot seat here for the Austrian Grand Prix.
Yeah, and this was a tough one. There were just so many possible questions. I really had to narrow it down here, but we're trying to follow up a 5 for 5, if you remember. So for the folks playing at home, we've got 5 questions, 3 multiple choice answers each. We're gonna put Aaron in the hot seat and see how well he does here. So for the Austrian Grand Prix, question one. The Red Bull Ring holds an FIA Grade 1 license and a Grade 2 license, meaning the Formula One World Championship can race here as well as what? Is it A, bumper cars? Is it B, 4x4 trucks? Or is it C, motorcycles?
I'm gonna go with C, motorcycles, even though I think we saw A this weekend a little bit.
A little bit of A, but you are correct, sir. It is C, motorcycles. The layout of the track is a little bit different. They add in a chicane onto the run up to turn 3, but other than that, pretty sure the layout is similar.
I saw that
So
it's kind of cool seeing as they go around the track. I was like, oh, there's a little chicane there. I was actually curious what that was used for, so that answers that question.
added in for the MotoGP. Question number two. So the track sat derelict until purchased by Red Bull's Dietrich Mateschitz. The track was rebuilt and hosted its first events, which was DTM and Formula 2, under its new branding, the Red Bull Ring, in what year? Was it A, 1995? Was it B, 2011? Or was it C, 2002?
I'm not 100. I'm gonna go C, 2002.
2002, fine guess. We're definitely into the aughts. It was 2011
Okay.
that
Yeah.
the circuit was kind of revamped for modern audiences.
Okay.
So moving on to question three. In 2002, the FIA put a no team orders rule in place after which constructor had their drivers change position in favor of their title contending driver. Was it A, Ferrari? Was it B, McLaren? Or was it C, Williams? A moment of great controversy.
I'm gonna say A, Ferrari.
You got it. It was Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello being given the team orders so that Michael Schumacher can then like lead and effectively clinch the championship. And the FIA said, "No, please, we do not want this happening." Question number four. Back in 2020, the Austrian Grand Prix received the honor of opening the championship by being the first European circuit to host the first round since Monaco 66. How many circuits have held the first race of the year? It's not many. Is it A5, is it B11, or is it C13?
Hmm. I'm gonna go with B11 because I know there's been at least, you said Monaco, Austria, we've had Australia, we've had Bahrain, so yeah, I'll go with B11.
I'm liking the logic. We would have needed two more. The answer is C,
Ugh,
13 tracks.
tough. All right.
No worries, no worries. We're learning. And then question number 5. Here's your here's your Max Verstappen fact for you. Due to global shutdowns, the Red Bull Ring was given 2 races in back-to-back years to make up for the late starts, leading to a confusing record for Max Verstappen. How many times has he actually won at the Red Bull Ring? Is it A5, B4, or C3?
A5.
Nailed it, nailed it, nailed it. You know just as well as he does how many times he has won, sir. Yes, it is 5 times. And the confusion involves 2020 and 2021. They did back-to-back races at that circuit, but called them different things. The one was like the Austrian Grand Prix, and the follow-up race
Is
was the Styrian Grand Prix, which is like the region that the circuit's held in. And you better believe it. Max does not forget when pressed by the media, he was like, "No, no, it's definitely 5, you little shit."
it really threw him for a loop, but I guarantee the presenter for that was just looking at past Austrian Grand Prix like
Right.
results. He just didn't he forgot about those couple years with the Styrian Grand Prix. So yeah, five there at the Red Bull Ring. Only 3 out of 5 for me this week though. So a couple of close answers, but just not quite good enough there. So I'll have to bounce back, hopefully at 5 this coming week with the Silverstone Grand Prix.
This is this was a tough one. Don't beat yourself up. I have to say I am pleased. The only one I really wanted you to get right was the Ferrari one about
Okay.
the team orders. That's like, dude, every time I read about that, I'm just like, damn, that's so funny. It just
Yeah.
makes me laugh so hard.
Well, it just makes me laugh because I don't understand how the FIA thought they were going to stop it from happening. Like all it takes is a team like having some code word and all of a sudden like
Mm-hmm.
it just being a little bit more sneaky about it, I guess, and they're not really stopping anything. Um so yeah, definitely an interesting moment there. But to kick us into this F1 weekend, why don't you lead us off with your winners for this week in our winners and losers segment?
For regular listeners, I bet you could just peg me to a wall. You say, I know what he's gonna say. That's not what I'm gonna say. That's not what I'm gonna say. Y'all think I'm gonna pick the 1-2. That's not what I'm gonna say. My number one winner actually is Kick Sauber.
Okay.
They felt like a totally different team. They felt like a totally different team watching them
Yep.
this weekend. The onboards, the radio comms, the positivity, the raw pace that they had, not just in the race, but qualifying got them there, and then by God they stayed there. They didn't drift backwards, which one could usually expect from a Kick Sauber if they were even there to begin with. So I felt like this was a totally new grid considering like Haas and Kick Sauber specifically. But yeah, I was very impressed with Bortoletto and Hulkenberg. The amount of overtakes that Bortoletto had to do in his race to get that position was not few. He was often on the broadcast. We were watching him overtake. I loved the end of the race. They're getting blue flags all around the circuit. He doesn't care. He's like, "Nah, I'm just gonna race Alonso." Oh, Piastri's coming behind me. Here, let me try and overtake Alonso right here. Like he
Yeah.
didn't really care. He was just gonna just do his own race. So I was very very impressed with Kick Sauber, and for that reason, they're my number one winner here for the week.
And I will just echo your points. They were one of my winners this week as well. The double points finish and this kind of huge upswing in performance. I know they brought some upgrades. Um, a couple of weeks ago, and Nico Hulkenberg picked up that P8 in Canada. But now, with back to back races of positive performances, and Bortoletto just looking really comfortable and strong from all the way through the practice sessions, all the way here through the race, I think is super impressive. He gets his first Q3 appearance, he gets his first points on the year, beats out his teammate, and now we have a pretty exciting little battle in that P6 to P9. Alpine being the only team that's kind of being left off the back there. I mean, Racing Bulls is at 36 points, Haas is at 29, Aston Martin is at 28, Kick Sauber's now at 26. So a very a 10-point gap there in that um, mid to back of field area, and I think that this upswing from Kick Sauber could really push them forward if these upgrades that they brought have just continue to work at the upcoming tracks as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see them looking pretty strong.
Yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eye to see, is this like, just kind of track specific, or can we look forward to some similar results here in the future? Because they're not, we're not competing for wins here, but noting and seeing progress like when it's being had, I think is just worthwhile in general, and I was really impressed with them. My second winner here on the weekend, maybe an odd one, but when we are TSM odd one, but when we are in this like Formula One, like Squid Game scenario where like young drivers are, it feels like effectively like fighting for their seat every weekend out. I very happy to see Liam Lawson put a good result on the board, kept his nose clean. Like he said in the media, he thought his race was just over right there during Kimi Antonelli and Max. So that he was able to keep on going, avoid serious damage, and then put the car up in like a notable position, significantly outdrives his teammate, significantly outdrives the other Red Bull car that was still on track. I mean, this is not a bad weekend for a Red Bull supported driver, you could say. And for someone who, I know the stocks have been low on him for a while, and so for him to get this good result, I think that's got to be a big confidence booster.
Yeah, and funny enough, Liam Lawson was my second winner as well. So we're
Copy my homework.
I know we're our brain waves were synced up for that there, but um I mean, I same thing for me, and I thought the big thing was his qualifying performance. Isaac Hadjar has had the upper hand throughout the season so far since the switch. Hadjar qualifies in a respectable P13. Like that's not a bad qualifying position for the Racing Bulls. I feel like we've been so used to Hadjar making it to Q3 over recent races that it was a little bit of a surprise for him to not make it. But Liam also is ahead of Max in the qualifying there as well. Max, of course, had his last qualifying lap thrown off by a safety or a yellow flag. Um, so unfortunate for him there, but Liam put in a really strong qualifying to put himself up in P6, and then yeah, drove a really good race to finish in P6, pick up his first points of the year, I believe, or some of his first points of the year, along with his highest finish in Formula One so far in his career. So a really strong weekend from Liam, and I yeah, just echo your sentiments there.
Yeah, very cool for Liam. We like to see the Kiwi getting his elbows out. Tell me about some of your losers here.
Yeah, let me go first before I copy all of your answers. But my my first loser this weekend was Red Bull. You have the unfortunate scenario with Max getting hit by Kimi Antonelli. Nothing that he can really do about that, knocking him out of the race on lap. Was it lap one? Yeah, it had to be lap one. It's just
Yeah, lap
it's
one,
all
turn three, though.
yeah, it's all a blur. And then Yuki just struggling, having so many incidents throughout the race. I think he was the last of the finishers. He was 2 laps down. Just a really, really difficult weekend, and especially his qualifying performance. He had finished, he was starting P18 after qualifying, so just couldn't put anything really together. And then, as we alluded to in the hot seat, playing bumper cars out there with the amount of contact that he was having with different drivers, you just it's not what you want to see. I'm a big Yuki fan, and I obviously there's some characteristic of this car that drivers are struggling to come to grips with, but um yeah, at least need to try and keep it a bit more clean. So a tough weekend for Red Bull here at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, I big time agree. Honestly, if I was a Red Bull maximalist, I would have a hard time not seeing Kimmy's mistake as just a straight up he never meant to make that corner. You can be about as generous as you want. Like that onboard is damning of him just like sliding around everybody just straight into Max.
Yeah, I mean the lockup is tough. Like I know, like he said he was trying to avoid any cars, and he did dodge out Liam Lawson there, but couldn't dodge all of them. So it's tough, but I appreciated Max's reaction to it and everything. Max had a better reaction than I did. I I was off the couch, hands up in the air, hollering, God damn it, Kimmy. I was having a very brief crash out, and then but no, seeing Max and the kind of grace that he had with Kimmy, and he has had with these young drivers. You see him around the circuit, like through the drivers parade. He's talking to Kimmy, he's talking to Bortoletto, he's talking to Behrman, and he's kind of like taken a lot of these guys under his wing in different instances, to just give them positive energy going forward and everything. And I appreciated that, he he just took it with uh took his lumps, and then was like, hey. And I think knowing that he probably made some similar mistakes when he was a young driver, I think he's probably treating these drivers how he wish he had been treated back when he was having those incidents as a young driver. So but yeah, overall just a tough weekend for the Red Bull team there. Was that one of your losers as well?
Was
Okay.
not. I just yeah, I just wanted to say I did appreciate the good sportsmanship out of Max. Pretty much made a beeline to Kimi Antonelli, just like making sure he was okay, and like they walked to the they walked towards the fence like with each other. So I thought that was encouraging. Yeah, obviously he's not pulling a George Russell and like hucking his headphones like at Valtteri like in his seat. Obviously different ways you can go about it, different ways you can go about it.
Yeah, this
But
is
no,
probably a little bit better of a way in this in the circumstance.
But no, Rebel, not one of my losers. I did just want to comment just briefly on the Mercedes angle of when you are, I think you're 1 point behind Ferrari in the championship. These results are going to be very tough. Obviously, you are expecting some amount of headaches when you have a rookie driver coming in. These types of incidents are like rookie driver incidents that you're kind of like factoring in, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're still like well within normal limits here. Obviously fucking Jack Doohan was removed from the seat for less, right? So I think we're still okay, but it's days like this where like if I'm a Mercedes fan, my alarm bells like they're almost going off. I don't know. I don't know. because they seemed a little far back from the Ferraris. And when your second driver is having like less than stellar results, who else is going to pick up that slack? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I think Mercedes, we need to improve. We need to improve some of these results. George, I think he's racing well. But yeah, I think Mercedes kind of lost out a little bit this weekend in their fight against Ferrari.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat here for a
Love it.
second.
Bring it on.
I think Kimmy is playing the long con, and he so Max's exit clause apparently from Red Bull is if he finishes below third place in the driver's standings.
I saw this
Kimmy
meme. I saw this meme.
Kimmy's taken out Max so that George can get ahead of him. George has said he's been in contract negotiations but has not been confirmed for next year. Kimmy gets George up ahead of Max in the standings so that Toto can poach Max for Mercedes and Kimmy Max teammates, the two Wunderkind over there in the Mercedes outfit. No, I like I said, tinfoil hat. I don't think anyone's doing anything intentional. No one's intentionally crashing this week, but
That's not what it looked like to me, dude. What?
I think the lockup, yeah, it's tough, but like you said, it is really difficult when the standings are this close. They're only 1 point behind Ferrari. If Kimi doesn't make that mistake, they're probably ahead of Ferrari in the standings this week after the race. Um, but I also we know that Mercedes has also talked about the car working in specific like windows of temperatures, and it was brutally hot there in Austria this week, so not ideal for them like Canada was, for instance. I think Silverstone, though, I do expect them to bounce back, look pretty strong. Their home circuit, probably cooler weather there. So a big pickup for Ferrari, but yeah, Mercedes definitely lost out this week there. And then my second loser from my side this week was the Williams team. Not a lot you can really say. A double DNF from just difficult issues with the car and everything. You have Carlos Sainz having brake seizing issues before the race even starts after having made the full grid lap to get out into his position and everything. No issues there. And then when he tries to get it going on the formation lap, everything just stopped working for him. So very tough. And then for Albon to DNF as well. Williams has really had a tough few races in a row now and is slowly slipping away from or losing that grip that they had on fifth in the championship, and some of these other teams are starting to inch up on them for that P5.
Yeah, the interesting thing about the Carlos Sainz scenario was like Cup half full Carlos. He was literally looking at his brakes on fire and he's just like calmly on the radio, like, can you guys cool my brakes? Can you guys just cool my brakes? Like as though that car was going back out on track with the thick black smoke billowing off the rubber of his tires. He's just like, yo, just cool them. Like, I'll be fine.
I loved that when they got his car going, he drives it around the entire circuit on the aborted start, and I'm like, oh, I guess he's just gonna pull into his pit box, and they're gonna like he'll be out, and he just drives right past them to the starting line in the pit lane. He's like, oh, it's just a pit lane start now, boys. And and you're seeing the orange glow from both rear tires as he just drives past all of his engineers and pit boxes. He's just like, let's keep it rolling. But yeah, that was definitely a good laugh before the race. But yeah, unfortunate for Carlos there not getting the opportunity to go out and drive.
Yeah, you do just hate to see like a double DNF from any team. Like that's just got to be the most demoralizing thing ever. Like you're just I just weekend ruined effectively. So yeah, no matter what team it is, you just hate to see the double DNF. I did share the Williams sentiment this week. I did not like to see that. But yeah, just a really interesting one from the Austrian Grand Prix. And the one thing that we didn't talk about was the qualifying session. I think part
Mhm.
of the results that we had were like some cars out of positioning, including Max. Arguably P7 likely was not where he was. But yeah, the end of the qualifying session, what I was trying to get at was like it feels like the drivers are punished for a steward mistake. Where like if they had just waited like half a second, you would see that the car was done spinning and you wouldn't have even needed the flag to begin with. But that like half second of a yellow flag, it ruins all of these drivers' laps. It
Yeah,
just feels like if it is, like, completely removed from the control of any of the drivers and the teams, and it's, like, on the stewards, that feels really tough. That feels,
yeah.
like, even worse than, like, somebody crashing and ending a session. It's like, I mean, that's understandable, but this one felt this one felt like an egregious reason to have so many drivers go without like a final hot lap. That was very frustrating to me.
No, I'm with you. I think it's I'm so torn on this conversation because obviously like it put Max out of position to no fault of his own. If he had not been down there, if he had been up in P3, P4 where his lap was looking like, then he probably doesn't get hit by Kimmy there. And then this is a whole like the everything drastically changes there. But I think what I struggle with is I'm always, and you and I both always lean towards the side of caution when it comes to driver safety and all of these things. So, and I've had issues with them waiting too long to red flag races in torrential downpours or to like make these calls when there's incidents and crashes and everything where I'm like why is it yellow flagged? Like there's a car obliterated just in the middle of the road. Like what are we doing? So I can't be too upset about them seeing a car spin and someone going, wait, caution. Especially while people are going their absolute fastest out there on circuit during the qualifying. Um, However, yeah, it's brutal that it ends up being kind of unnecessary, but I almost do lean towards the side of that being the right call, but it also feels really bad at the same time. Like I think I would want to err on the side of caution, but to see drivers qualifying just get kind of ruined in their last opportunity to move up in the field and get that position, just lost the potential excitement of that. Oh, who's gonna come across the line fastest? Are they the McLarens push that time lower and lower? Is anyone gonna get in there? Leclerc almost does with the P2 qualifying, but you lose out on a few of those guys getting to put in their last lap there, and that's never exciting. But that I guess that's the catch 22 of that kind of situation.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's a totally impossible like request from my end, right? It's a that seems like the right way to think about it. It's the right call, but it's gonna feel really bad every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. You want to make sure that everybody's safe. so that you can go racing again. Yeah, that does feel like the right move. I just wanted to bring up that
All right.
little bit of stewarding from qualifying, because I do feel like that informed a lot of what we saw during the race, because
Yeah.
we did have so many out of position cars.
Yeah, really it skewed the results a decent bit with how things were. But also the other kind of big talking point. I know I was in our Discord talking about how what am I gonna do for 70 laps without Max? That's so many laps. And I will say the middle of the race was a little bit boring for a few of those laps, but the McLarens put on a really good show. Super competitive fighting early on. I really thought Oscar was going to chase down Lando. I found it kind of interesting the decision to leave him out there for as long as they did after Lando had come into pit. Um, Especially after he flat spotted the tire right before Lando came into pit. I think that's kind of the point where I would be like, no, we're just gonna pit you next lap, and whatnot, not try and get you that tire advantage later on or whatever they were, I guess, trying to give Oscar the opportunity to mix up the strategies there. Um, but Oscar also just unfortunately after his pit stop comes out right into some traffic. And that was one of the big kind of difference makers, I think, for Lando securing the win here. In particular, the last couple laps we saw Colapinto almost crash Oscar into the side of the main straight in his battle with Yuki for P16 or 15 or whatever it was that they were duking it out there for while they were being lapped. But it almost looked like Colapinto got confused for a second that like he was like battling with Yuki, and then Yuki went one way and all of a sudden there's another car coming past him and he like it looked like he almost like panicked like, wait, I'm supposed to defend someone here. But yeah, tough for Oscar in that situation as he's trying to make up that gap to Lando, and then just getting through traffic depending where you hit it in the lap. It just that can make or break a lap for you. And so Lando drove really well. He drove a strong race. I would have loved to see another fight like we had for the first 20 laps there right at the end, but unfortunately don't quite get to see it ramp back up right at the end there. Um, but still a strong, very strong weekend with the 1-2 for McLaren.
Dude, smooth brain me. I thought the exact same thing. I had like brainwashed myself into thinking that Lando was on a one-stop strategy. So I was like, oh, like Piastri's gonna be able to come back at him. We'll get that final stint Duke out. And then he like pulls into the pits. I was like, wait, what are you doing? And then like, and then Piastri gets stuck behind everybody and all of that. But yeah, I was like, I got so confused in there. Yeah, man. I'm sorry though that it was such a boring middle ground there without your boy Max.
No, well,
I
and I mean the middle of the race where I felt like I kind of lost some of my like it was just the fact that there wasn't any fighting in those top
sure.
positions. And like I said, I think Max would have had the potential to like climb up and at least fight with the Ferraris, maybe fight for a podium position. Um, but it just felt like there were the McLarens who everyone knew were out front, but they were like 5 seconds apart, fighting through traffic and like lapping cars and just there. Oh, the gap's going from 5.5 seconds to 3.5 seconds, but they're not really getting close. The Ferraris had like a 10-second gap between them as well. They're not, and no one's really battling them. George Russell, I don't know if I saw him the entire race like those top positions where you would want to see some excitement in battling for that lap 20 to lap 60 period, they just weren't even near each other. And so that stretch was a little tough. We fortunately had Yuki out there to provide some comedic entertainment for the race, to just keep it fresh there in those middle laps for us. But I think that was my uh, one of the disappointments of losing Max, that you could have seen some more competitive fighting in that lead pack. But yeah, I mean, overall, I still love to watch it. There's plenty to pay attention to enjoy. Like pulling for Oscar to hunt Lando down and just make it a really tight finish there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm always gonna be disappointed. Like, I'm sure you were pretty bummed when Lando crashed into Oscar. If that had happened on lap one, though, imagine how much more bummed you would be watching an entire race, being like, "Oh man."
Yeah, I did feel really bad after that, and you're right. I would be remiss. Oh wait, no, I just have another really good McLaren driver to just swap my carrying to. That's right, I
Not
forgot.
all of us have two drivers on their team, Justin. We
Oh shit,
gotta
I forgot. I have two good drivers, not just one.
Yeah, so no, I I'm being or I like to use hyperbole sometimes a little bit there in the Discord, get a rise
Sure.
out of you guys. But no, it was a pretty solid race weekend, and I'm definitely looking forward to Silverstone having the back to back again, and just love to go racing. So I'm excited for Silverstone this coming weekend.
No, for sure. I do believe Silverstone is one of the better rounds of the of the calendar. I think the drivers really appreciate the circuit, and I think when you as a viewer can see the drivers like enjoying what they're doing, I think it just makes for like a better, more entertaining race. And for my knowledge, a good many of the drivers really appreciate both the racing at Silverstone and also the history at Silverstone. So yeah, just one of my favorite rounds of the year. As always, sometimes sometimes rainy, so we can get some of the some of those X wets on the car. See some of that action is always fun. Last note for Austria, because we only saw two drivers do it. Pretty sure it was Liam Lawson and Fernando Alonso. One stop strategy
Hmm.
compared to many drivers did the two, some had to do a three, depending on like early contact and such. But it's interesting to see a couple of our maybe higher than usual position drivers. We have Alonso as well as Liam Lawson utilizing a different tire strategy to get that done, which is very surprising considering, like we were talking about earlier, considering the temperatures. So seeing different like strategies available depending on how the car is set up. So that was just one last like just strategy note that I thought was interesting from the weekend, seeing just a little bit of variance in what teams thought were good, but the lesser taken strategy actually turned out to be like a fine way to approach the race, considering I think their results were fine.
Yeah, and I think especially seeing Alonso at the end, well really he and Liam, like they both were able to maintain their positions, and Alonso with just like his racecraft. That's the word I was looking for earlier.
There you go.
Racecraft. Uh for with Alonso holding off Bortoleto there at the end, who was on the two-stop strategy, kind of chasing him down, trying to get by on a number of occasions. That made it very interesting. I think it was a smart call with Aston Martin to put Alonso in that position where he can just defend and finish strong on the one stop. So definitely impressive, and he and Liam were the two that did the one stop. I was double checking through through the pit stop summary here, but yeah, and Yuki with his three stop strategy there was, I would say, not the quickest on the weekend for ways
Definitely
to
not the
go.
quickest route around that circuit. But yeah, as far as like notes for the race weekend, I think that was all I had. Threw in my gripe about the qualifying, had to get that in there, and then the just the little tip of the hat to the one stop strategy. Other than that, though, did you have any final notes that you want to go over?
No, that was it. So to round out the Austrian Grand Prix, we had Lando Norris P1, Oscar Piastri P2, Charles Leclerc P3. Kimi Antonelli will serve a three-place grid penalty for his collision at Silverstone this coming weekend. So he picked up that and two penalty points. Um, so still like 10 penalty points away from a race ban. I don't think that's anything worth talking about. But like you had said earlier, Ferrari 1 point ahead of Mercedes in the constructors' standings and a 15-point lead for Oscar Piastri over Lando Norris in the drivers' standings at the moment. Um, so I think it should be a really exciting week here in Silverstone. Like we said, George Russell and the Mercedes look a little bit stronger in the colder weather. Maybe they can shake things up and turn around some of that performance after Ferrari's strong weekend here in Austria.
Yeah, like I said, definitely looking forward to it. We know what is coming up, but let's talk about what's been behind us. Aaron, let's get these folks out of here. Let's get into the cool down lap.
Sounds good. So we've got the Rose, Thorn, and Seed for you all this week. So I'll just kick it off here. And so my Thorn this week is just some tensions at work. We had a couple of maintenance guys leave recently. So our one maintenance guy moved to Florida. The other guy quit for a multitude of reasons, and so we're just kind of in a tough position in terms of that, as well as our housekeeper and one of my other colleagues just don't they butt heads quite a bit, and just the communication, there's only so much I can do to try and smooth over the communication. So right now work's just it's our busiest time of year, and there's all these personnel issues, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. So that is stressing me out a little bit, and definitely not the ideal work scenario for me. However, my rose this week is that it is the 4th of July Independence Day weekend. So, with the 4th of July being on Friday, I have a short week and I don't have to deal with it for as many days. So, that's my little rose this week on top of that kind of tough work situation that we have going. And then my seed for this week is that I've been getting back into running a bit more. I've been being more consistent with it. And Colleen is pushing me forward. She signed me up along with herself for a 5K coming up. And so it gives me something to like aim for, to train for and everything. And I think we'll just kind of keep the ball rolling with my exercising, and give me some more motivation, or just that mental reminder of like, oh yeah, I need to get out and do this. I feel like that's one of the biggest issues for myself, is if I don't think about it or don't have a reason to think about it, it just slips by with all the other life and house and other stuff that life has going on. So yeah, nice. And it's not that time consuming for the distances I'm running, so I can. It's easier to squeeze this kind of training in, which is nice.
Well, what do you do for like rewards? How do you reward yourself?
Uh, I don't really. I just give
Right.
myself something to train after, so that if I don't, then I feel guilt. And so
Right.
my motivating
All the way at
factor
the end, though.
is guilt. Well, no, it's like, oh, I know I need to exercise because I signed up for this thing. So like, okay, I'll go do it. So I guilt
Gotcha.
trip myself into doing it instead of having instead of dangling a carrot out in front of myself. So that actually might be a more positive way to do it. Setting up some sort of reward system might be a better way to motivate myself.
Yeah, you're supposed to, like, find your frog, and then once you, like, get past that, yeah, then you, like, have cake or something. You have to for real, you have to reward, like, good behavior.
Yeah,
It's like positive reinforcement, and it goes a long way.
yeah.
Do you know what finding your frog means?
No, not at all.
Finding your frog is like if you look at a to-do list and one thing pops out is like, oh fuck that thing in particular. I don't want to do that thing. I hate this thing. Well, that's your frog, and then you have to do it first. That's
Oh,
the thing.
okay.
Because then it's out of the way. Everything
Ah,
else, you know the phrase, it's all downhill from here? There you go. It's all downhill. Now you don't have to pedal anymore. You could just
yeah, that's a good way to look. And it's not even that I don't enjoy exercising. Like when I do it, I feel good. It's just I can be very out of sight, out of mind with things, and so
mhm.
if it's not like at the top of my mind, I will just forget about it and then go, "Oh man, I should have done that." Um, but yeah, I maybe there's probably a few tools, whether it's making lists of things that I want to do or get done, or having reminders for different things, or maybe some positive reinforcement. But I guess the positive reinforcement with having something to train for is that I do want to do well at that, and so the good performance at whatever race or whatnot is I guess the final carrot at the end of that. Um, so yeah, that is my rose thorn and seed for this week. But yeah, hoping to keep the ball rolling with the exercising.
Well, I'm gonna press you just a little bit because you talked about the exercise, but you didn't talk about Diplo. I want to know how Diplo
Oh,
factors into your running.
so this is a Diplo 5K, so I get to run the race and
Oh,
then there's a concert afterwards. So
nice.
the
Okay,
race and concert ticket are combined.
nice.
And he has put out like playlists for people for training and things like that, and playlists for like getting people ready for whatever set he's doing and everything for the concert. So that is the Diplo portion of the Diplo 5K.
Nice. Okay. So now we know why you have to train. Because if you
Yes.
train, then you beat everybody to the front where you can stand by the stage. Because if you're faster than everybody else, it's general admission, baby. I'm walking up front.
Top 10 get reserved seats or top 10 get
Exactly.
VIP.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That would be honestly, I wonder if there is anything like that. That would be kind of sick.
Honestly, fire. You gotta call the services and say, hey, if I win
Marketing
this thing,
wizard here.
does yeah, there you go. All right. So my roast thorn and seed is not near as fun as yours, but it is, it's something. So my thorn for today, uh, it's a bad one. I had to refund a service today, for my
Oh.
first client. Not good. And I could feel before we even started that we may be in this position.
Hmm.
I have fear surrounding prepay and then canceling before I do anything. Even if I get that like that feeling of, oh, I don't think we're going to be a good match for each other. I have a fear of like, well, they prepaid, like but okay, so that's my thorn. My seed is I know now that in the future I have to listen to my gut. I have to listen to that feeling that's telling me, hey, this might be a waste of time. I have to listen to that feeling. And as much as I dread that interaction of them saying like, "Oh, wait, no, no, no," what I'm supposed to do is just say, "Hey, look, I don't think we're going to be a therapeutic match for each other. Let me just refund your money right now and like you can just go about your day." Because I've learned too many times the
Did
feeling of
you
like messing up a session where I cannot meet their expectations, where like
did
I'm
you
not the
know that
therapist. I had a
before they
feeling.
even came in?
I didn't. I didn't
Okay.
know before they were in the office.
Cuz
If I
that's
would have had an inkling, I would have done something,
cuz that's a
but it
really
was
tough
not.
spot. Like you because they've taken time out of their day to come down and they're there in person and everything. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from with wanting to at least like give it a go. But I think if you've based on the experience and especially in the business that you're in of physical therapy, like you have been doing this long enough with the massage therapy to know your strengths and weaknesses and the type of treatments that you provide, and so yeah, that makes sense.
So even though I had this fear of like, that's like hasty, let me give it a shot. I know now because of experience, I know now that that voice is right. And yes, it will be a headache, and yes, they may hate you, but I know it's the right answer. Like you said earlier, it is the right call, but it's going to feel like hell. But
Yeah.
I know for a fact that it will feel better than how I felt all day. So my seed is I just have to respect my own boundaries and understand what I'm capable and not capable of and like actually acting on it and not wasting 2 hours of both of our lives, right? So that's
Yeah.
my seed. But then the rose is after I was out of that scenario, kick my head down the road just a little bit, just a little bit. But I have to say, and I'm actually like very proud of myself. I utilized a couple of the tools, couple of strategies that I've learned in the last couple years, uh, primarily positive self talk. I just kept reminding myself, it's like, all right, we're just going to keep taking steps forward. Like, all right, even if you get distracted, even if, all right, you may get a little frustrated, thinking about it, it's okay. We're just going to keep taking steps forward. And through all of that, we made it through the day. Nothing else bad happened. There was, no, the world, you find out at the end, the world does not end. So I say all of this to say what was a really, really tough thing to deal with. I think I am more prepared today to have dealt with it than I ever have been before, and for that I'm very grateful.
Nice. I mean, that's honestly a great perspective to have. And like you said, that's one of like your perspective, the positive self-talk, things like that are things I know you've worked on over the years. And it's just it's good that all of those things are coming together to make a tough situation into you're finding the silver lining in the tough situation and everything to be able to do better for yourself and kind of in that situation moving forward for any other instances. And I think it's also good that you learned that by experience with this too. Like, not that it would have been bad if you had told them flat out from the beginning, but I think after going through and giving it a shot when you didn't think it was going to work and all, it like gives you a confirmation that's different than just like I think I did the right thing. Like now from that experience you can be like, no, I know I'm doing the right thing because I've been here before. And so that's definitely a good good takeaway from yeah, a kind of shitty part of your day.
Real tough stuff, but I have to say I appreciate having your support on it, and it sounds like you see and hear me pretty well. So I just want to say thank you for that. But yeah, to anybody else that's having a bad day, just turn on the Tired Boys podcast, hear about your favorite drivers, hear about your favorite teams, and in about an hour or so, those cares may just be drifting down the lane just a little bit more. I have to say, I'm grateful to be able to be here with Aaron, talking to you guys about Formula One. We do new episodes after every Formula One event. So after Silverstone, come and listen. We'll be happy to have you. This has been another episode of the Tired Boys podcast. Peace out, everyone, and thank you for listening.
See ya.